Okay, so welcome back to everyone for yet another exciting session coming up this afternoon for all of us. I would like to thank each one of you for joining the Global FinTech Fest and for attending this session. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank our valued partners, National Bank of India, Amazon Pay, WhatsApp, Google Pay, and Visa. So without any further delay, I would like to welcome our guest, Mr. Abhijit Bose, Head of India WhatsApp, for a keynote address on the topic India and WhatsApp creating templates for the world. Over to you and welcome, Mr. Bose.
Thanks very much, and good afternoon to everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with all of these leaders from the financial and technology sector. WhatsApp is excited to be part of the Global FinTech Fest, and I want to thank all the sponsors and organizers for all their efforts. I am going to switch over and present, and I hope all can hear.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Well, thanks again. So my parents left India in the 60s to come to the US. At the time, I suppose there was a feeling that you had to be there if you wanted to be in the middle of opportunity or whatever they felt innovation was at the time. I was born and raised in the US, as many of you can tell from my accent. And eventually I moved to Silicon Valley in the late 90s to be part of the dot-com boom. Now, something happened to me around 2004. As I was thinking about what was the next big idea, what was the entrepreneurial venture I wanted to follow, I read The World is Flat, a book by Tom Friedman talking about what we now know is version 1 of the India tech story. To me, even then, if you had to make a 25-year bet, it was clear, why would you not bet on India? It would be like going back in time in the 80s to Silicon Valley. So my wife and I, who'd been married for less than a year, packed a few suitcases and we moved to Bangalore. I joined my first mobile payment startup in 2006. And in those days, all the VC-backed tech companies in Bangalore used to meet once every month or two. And in those days, it barely took half of a hotel ballroom for all of us to fit. I started with the story to remind myself and everybody on the call that we've come a long way. And because what I believed then, and I believe even more strongly now, is that the fintech innovation happening here and the outcomes that all of us are jointly going to do together are years ahead of any other country, including the US. And my belief in that statement stems from the complexity that all of us face and the scale that we need to think of in everything that we do, which is way beyond what you would see in most other markets. And hence the innovation, and not just the tech, the practical operations and cost structure on the ground also has to be thought of at a very, very different level than anywhere else. Years ago, Nandan kind of coined this period of tech innovation and disruption as India's WhatsApp moment. I think now our ecosystem in fintech has gotten global credibility, and we simply need to call it India's fintech moment. And if chapter 1 of India exporting to the world's tech story was about services, chapter 2 will happen during the next few years, and it'll be based on two things: a new digital architecture and infrastructure made in India, but then replicated and interconnected around the world, and equally important, custom solutions created by the private sector on this public infrastructure, which will first solve large social, business, and financial problems here in India, and then which in turn will become templates for us to take to other countries for them to copy and deploy. Now, the case study we've always used for India Stack has been GPS. Released in the US in 2000, within 5 years, functional applications started showing up. And between 3 to 5 years later, the actual commercial business use cases launched. The entire e-commerce and ride-hailing market that we all take for granted was ignited by only opening up one service. And with India Stack, we launched 6, so our expectations should be big. And if we index against the GPS case study now, we've already passed the validation phase. The fact that India Stack is the fintech architecture of the future and that UPI should be exported and adopted by other countries is no longer a story. It is, and it should. But this isn't the end game. Payments, for example, is a service, and on its own, it doesn't help a small business increase its sales, or a migrant worker have access to medical insurance, or have a villager use their Jan Dhan bank account more regularly. The goal is not to bring payments to the masses. We need to bring services to the masses. And of course, the ability to pay and complete a transaction is critical, but it's only half the battle. Last year, RBI released its 5-year financial inclusion strategy, and it highlighted, among other things, the need for frictionless access to banking and basic financial services, including insurance and pensions. The public infrastructure and building blocks are in place. It's now time for the private sector, this group, to figure out how to deliver commercially viable and digitally scalable solutions that will solve our biggest social and financial gaps. The fintech story of India has been truly amazing. There's more chapters to be written, and I believe WhatsApp has a key role to play. For me, it was difficult to leave EasyTap, a company we started in 2011, for WhatsApp, but the opportunity was huge. It was a place, and probably one of the few places in the world, where I felt that we could actually impact the lives of literally hundreds of millions of people, and say that with a straight face. And we could do that by leveraging our platform to make lives easier and make people more financially secure. We have over 400 million users, which means that there are at least 200 million users who can be new and come onto the UPI network and be connected to the new digital economy that we're all building. And many of these users are underserved, for whom technologies and access to services can actually change their lives. And many people know our consumer story, but let's know that over 15 million small business users use WhatsApp to connect with their customers. Moreover, we have thousands of large enterprises and financial institutions that use our business API to serve their customers at scale. And during COVID, we opened up and we worked with central and state governments to scale information and services during this critical period. At the heart of all of this are our core principles: simplicity, reliability, privacy, and security, which are the reasons that people trust and are comfortable with WhatsApp. And when we talk about adoption of new digital services, especially financial services, these are critical.
Abhijit?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, if you want to present the screen, whenever you want to present, you can just start presenting your presentation.
I'm sorry, I think that hasn't been presenting then. Are we now able to see? Is my screen visible?
No, we can only see you.
I'm sorry. Give me 1 second. Okay.
Yes, now it's very clear. Thank you.
Thank you so much for calling that out. So, WhatsApp has always started with the customer user experience first. Now, as a result, we've not allowed businesses to push bulk marketing to our consumers. Our focus has been ensuring that individuals can reach out in a simple, private, and secure way to the people that they want to connect with, not the other way around. So saying hi on WhatsApp has been a key way that families and friends have stayed connected during COVID. But what's changing is that saying hi on WhatsApp is how consumers are increasingly reaching out to their local businesses or their trusted banks to keep their lives running during this period when they couldn't visit in person. And for a business, when somebody reaches out on WhatsApp, we know that there is interest and intent, which gives our partners a good way to increase access to services and test new solutions, which can scale in a much more efficient and cost-effective manner. Now, a lot has been made about WhatsApp launching payments, and it's important. But it's payments at scale combined with partners, banks, and small businesses, leveraging services like our business app and the WhatsApp Business API, that we can customize solutions for inclusive banking, digitization of the MSME ecosystem, or accelerate distribution of products that enable financial inclusion and security. And it's important to note that these solutions are not done in isolation. They're usually deployed by investing in and connecting with innovative vertical solutions from startups or other technology providers from this fintech community. Widespread adoption of payments through UPI apps, including WhatsApp Pay, is important because we ultimately can't scale financial services to every citizen if they don't have the ability to complete the transaction. And it's not just for the people in the urban areas. We have to make sure that we're able to reach the people in rural India or those who are in geographical or financial limbo due to the current crisis. COVID has shown us how important our mission is for all of us, and it's also highlighted the importance of timing. We as a community need to act and scale financial and economic inclusion for people and small businesses now. So WhatsApp has always started with the user experience. So let's talk a little bit about each of these examples. I remember having a conversation with a former MD of one of the larger PSU banks when I first started at WhatsApp. At the time, we were discussing how the financial system can accelerate MSME credit and lending, and we'll touch upon that in a minute. But first, the MD said that we had hit a floor on how deep we can support people in remote areas. Why? Because we can't afford to put a physical person or ATM in every village, waiting for the few credit application or account openings that might happen. Truly inclusive and active banking for everyone will have to be digital, and it'll have to be led by trusted banks, of course, but it would also have to be done in partnership. So WhatsApp has been working over the last year plus with our banking partners to see how we can supplement their digital presence to accelerate our current pace of financial access across segments and geos. Now, all banks have their own mobile banking app with comprehensive and rich functionality. The question we asked was, how can we use WhatsApp's reach, our security through end-to-end encryption, as well as a simple user experience to complement their banking app, optimized for a few but important services. Early examples from ICICI, HDFC, and Kotak banks have been very well received. ICICI crossed 10 lakh users in 3 months within launch, and Kotak service has already crossed 20 lakh users. Now, with the initial proofs of concepts in place, we now want to open up with more banks coming over this coming year to help simplify and expand banking services, especially to the rural and lower income segments. And now with the potential model for inclusive banking in place, we also aim to expand our experiments with partners, other products that RBI highlighted as basic financial services, starting with micropensions and insurance. Now, the problem statement is known to most everybody. Financial shocks from unexpected events often are the reason why low-wage earners are stuck in poverty across generations. Savings get drained to pay one medical emergency, or in the case of a farmer, a bad harvest. In the rare cases they want to buy an asset or fund education or take a risk, they take high interest in formal loans, and any potential money in the future is lost. And at the end of their prime earning window, many have not built an asset base for retirement. The cycle of poverty continues with the next generation. And COVID has unfortunately made this issue even more real for too many people. Our collective aim over the next 2 to 3 years should be to help low-wage workers in the unorganized informal economy easily access 3 products: insurance, microcredit, and pensions. To highlight one example, it's estimated that over 300 million workers who have incomes and could afford to buy a pension haven't. Now, India has one of the lowest costs and most impactful pension schemes, but several factors have limited our ability to scale. There are complicated processes coupled with a lack of digital literacy and comfort in the target sector. NPS is driven by agents, so that limits access, especially in smaller cities where there are low ticket sizes. And for the unit cost for suppliers is high given the manual friction and the life cycle of a customer. This limits their ability to support the low-end products beyond urban clusters. And many of these issues exist if we were talking about microcredit or even insurance. Over the next 1.5 years, WhatsApp will be supporting multiple pilots to test potential solutions to solve these distribution problems. These pilots will be done jointly with our partners, as well as innovative tech partners in each vertical. Each pilot will start with a small experiment to test our hypotheses, and based on the results, we'll co-invest and scale the ones that show promise. Even a small conversion of the demand would translate into significant infusion of savings into the financial system. And our ultimate goal is for every Indian to have access to an affordable micropension and insurance services from our partners. As the flywheel starts moving, with consumers building financial assets and a history of regular savings, and small businesses also start building their digital footprint, with the ability to sell and collect payments over apps, the next leapfrog can happen. The working capital and credit market for both consumers and MSMEs can open up. Now, lending to the digitized and qualified is super easy, but lending to those that are not digitized nor have a history is very hard. And if this jump is to happen, it will have to be built through the data in the hands of our most stable and best banks. Now, I go back to my conversation with that MD over a year ago. I remember the person saying that when a decision was made about an MSME loan, they would have to question everything on the application. The only way they would actually approve a loan was to get the actual bank statements, remove all of the third-party transactions, and then look line item by line item and build up a monthly cash flow based on payments. Basically, they had to recreate the P&L in order to make a decision. And unfortunately, that doesn't scale. And the more remote the application, the less likely it would happen. So right after that conversation, we asked Bain to do a study for us. Again, we all know the theory that the digitization of the MSME economy should lead to expansion of working capital, but we asked if they could quantify it. If over the course of a year, if an MSME digitized a larger percentage of their business, and banks would have access to even a small partial digital P&L, what would be the impact? I've shown some of the summary here. In 2018, only 15% of the lower ticket size demand for credit, basically 5 lakhs and below, were being handled by formal sources. Moreover, for us to hit as a country our 2025 goals, they estimated that over 700 to $800 billion of additional credit would have to be in the system for us to meet the demand. We then mapped the demand against existing products from the financial sector and, confirming what the MD said, there is a product gap. Formal sources haven't scaled for that lower MSME segment. So what might be the impact if more MSMEs became digital through WhatsApp Pay and other UPI apps, and if more banks could actually start easily lending to them? We'll release the full report as part of our pilot, so I won't go through the calculations, but the headline is the following. If we can get the flywheel moving, more digital profiles to be created at banks, which would lead to larger and more and smarter lending, which would lead to increased MSME growth, which would lead to increased consumption and richer profiles and so on, and the flywheel starts moving in that fashion. Whatever baselines you use, there's obviously an opportunity to create significant economic and social impact. If you look at our 2025 targets, just accelerated lending from digitization alone could contribute to 6 to 7% of the government's target GDP growth. Moreover, as COVID has once again plainly shown, the health of the MSME economy impacts peoples and families. The growing MSME economy could impact 20% of our country's population through increased employment. WhatsApp will begin working with our banking and NBFC partners to test and validate these hypotheses. We will take pilots, we will launch them, and they will take investment and patience. And we will not get everything correct in phase one. But over time, their models will get smarter. And if we bring in credible banks with the right time horizon, assessors, and balance sheets, then over time we will change the system. What's clear is we need to start now. If we don't, nothing will ever happen. So it's time for all of us to start testing and investing based on results. It's been 15 years since my wife and I landed in HAL on Old Airport Road in Bangalore. I'm as excited and as convinced as I've ever been that the next few years of innovation in India will be amazing. There's so much opportunity to impact, and we touched on only 3 today, but quite frankly, every problem has a solution ready to be configured, tested, and hopefully scaled. We have the digital platforms and services, both public and private, working together to help us leapfrog our old barriers. And most importantly, we have the talented and entrepreneurial ecosystem in place. I'm proud that WhatsApp has been important in connecting friends and families during these times. I'm equally excited and proud of our aspirations to be a partner to the country and leverage our capabilities to deliver long-term economic impact. Now, over the next 2 years, we're committing to opening up in entrepreneurial ways we never have before. We will launch many experiments. Digital banking, increase to financial services, and digitization of the MSME operations are a starting point that are already in motion. And along the way, we will hold to a few guidelines. The solutions will not be WhatsApp solutions. They'll be from our partners, banks and financial service companies, along with their fintech partners. Consumers will always decide what they want and initiate the services. In the spirit of fintech, we will use the venture model. We'll take risks, but we will do it in controlled pilots. And based on user acceptance, we will invest and scale the solutions that deliver results. We don't know what will work, and we don't know what won't work. The key is for all of us to take a few punts and see if we can discover some breakthroughs. India was always destined to build our own templates. And once you prove it in India, a template here should be able to handle the complexities of any other market. And what we've discussed today are not templates of technology or payments, but solutions. Ones that are built on the new generation of architecture that was ironically invented here because we didn't have a lot of success with the old ones, and hence we had to build a new one. WhatsApp has over 2 billion users in over 180 countries. However, India is our largest market and influences both our investments and our roadmap in many ways. What we discover and scale here will become the template for other countries. So as a starting point, we do believe that India should complete its vision of UPI at home and then bring it to the world immediately, and WhatsApp is ready to help with both. We see the potential of a new global digital ecosystem built on this platform, and we would support showcasing it in other markets. The business case will be made even more strong when we're not just exporting technology, but actual solutions to economic and social inclusion validated at scale. So that will be WhatsApp's commitment, partnering to find breakthroughs, and then once we find these solutions, starting with financial inclusion, helping take them, including UPI abroad. I want to thank you all very much. I hope you and all of your families take care. And I do hope that WhatsApp continues to be an important part of your lives, whether it's your morning joke, whether it's a cross-country social happy hour with your friends, or whether it's just to say hi to your family every day. Thank you so much, and thanks for hosting me here.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bose, for this very enriching session. I think it was indeed a very detailed understanding of WhatsApp and plans of financial inclusion in India. Thank you so much. I would also like to thank our wonderful audience. I would see you all in another remarkable session in a short while. Till then, I would request all of you to please enjoy the exhibition space. There are over 70 exhibitors in the exhibition space and some really cool opportunities for you to win some really exciting prizes. And obviously, the other ongoing sessions at Global FinTech Fest. Stay tuned. Thank you, Mr. Bose. Thank you so much for the session.
Thank you.